I just want to say welcome to every single one of you, and welcome to Christ Sanctified Church, and welcome to Youth Bible Study, which is a Bible study that takes place at Christ Sanctified Church of Orlando, and it's done in English for everyone who speaks English. So I just want to welcome every single one of you. So tonight we are continue with the series on forgiveness, and we're going to talk about the power of forgiveness. And the story that we're going to talk about is the story of Joseph. So we're going to talk about part 3, which is entitled The Power of Forgiveness. And we're going to talk about the story of Joseph. So for us to do that, so let's read. So grab your Bible if you don't have it. Grab your Bible. Let's open it to the book of Genesis, chapter 50. And we're just going to read verses 15 through 21. Genesis chapter 50, verses 15 through 21. So I'm going to read. So when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, and they said, "What if Joseph bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all of the wrong which we did to him?" So they sent a message to Joseph saying, "Your father charged before he died, saying, thus you shall say to Joseph, please forgive, I beg you, the transgressions of your brothers and their sins, for they did you wrong. And now, please forgive the transgressions of the servants of God, of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Verse 18. Then his brother also came and fell down before him and said, Behold, we are your servants. But Joseph said to them, Do not be afraid, for am I in God's place? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. So, therefore, do not be afraid. I will provide for you and your little one. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So a lot of you who been involved in Bible study and also read the story of Joseph, so you guys understand the story is very remarkable and is one of the best story in forgiveness that is in the Bible, because Joseph had the power to forgive his brother despite all the things they had put him through, despite all the hardship, despite the plot to kill him, and despite his family malfunction. But Joseph had the ability to forgive. As you can see, Joseph's story it's one that I want to encourage every single one of you to read. So let's dive in a little bit so I can give you a little bit of the background of Joseph's life and Joseph's family. So let's just start with Joseph's family. Understand is Joseph's father Jacob was very old, so he had Joseph in an old age, and he loved Joseph very much. He loved Joseph very much, and he actually made Joseph a very special tunic to put on. And the issue with that is his brothers, Joseph's brothers, hate him because of his gift. So let's go back from Genesis chapter 37 and just read verse 4. Genesis chapter 37, let's read verse 4 so you can better understand what's happened in this family. You see, his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, and so they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. Why? It's because that Jacob loved Joseph a lot, and his brothers could not stand it. His brother really hated that, so they didn't like Joseph. And Joseph had a gift. God has given Joseph a gift. It's a gift for him to interpret dreams, for him to decipher dreams. So when you read in the same chapter, Genesis 37, Genesis 37, when you read on verse 5, it says, Then Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brother, they hated him more. Understand is, not only they hated Joseph because his father loved him, but also Joseph had a dream. Then he told his brothers about the dream. Oh, the hatred increased 2 times fold. Now, the story of Joseph spanned from Genesis chapter 37 all the way up to 50. It's a long story, and it's a remarkable story in the Bible. So I encourage you to read it, and perhaps you can more understand how God can use you despite what things that people have done to you, and to make you a better person. Okay? So the most stunning part of the story is about his forgiveness, how Joseph really went into himself and understand that even though his brother meant evil against him, that's what we read in Genesis chapter 50, even though his brother meant evil against him, but God has changed it for a time, for a season like this, so his family could be saved. Okay? So let's take a look at it. At home, his brother hit him. Okay? They want to kill him. Okay? So, as you can see, because of the love that his father had for him, Jacob, because of the gift that God has given him, they hate him for it. But despite all of these, but Joseph had found a way to forgive them. So this is one of the best examples of forgiveness that you guys can read and you guys can make sure that you meditate on. And if you have issue in your heart to forgiving people, so just read the story of Joseph. So let's look at what kind of favor that God has put on Joseph's life. So Genesis chapter 37, let's read verse 18 through 20. Verse 18 through 20. So on verse 18, we understand that his brother has a plot to kill him, but they didn't do it. And one of his brothers, which is Judah, saved his life. So let's read Genesis chapter 37, verse 18 to 20, so you can better understand the plot. So back in those times, Joseph was at home with his little brother Benjamin, and his brothers normally go out in the field to take care of the animals. Now his daddy Jacob told Joseph, by the way, I have not heard from your brothers. Can you please take some food and bring to them, so you can tell me, how they are doing, because they've been out in the field taking care of the sheep, taking care of the goat, taking care of the mule, taking care of the cows. They might be hungry. And Joseph take the food and be on his way, and went on his way so he can give it to his brother. But now, he did not know that they had a plot against him. He did not know that they really concocted a plan for his brothers to kill him because they hated him. He didn't know it. So when you read in chapter 37, verses 18 to 21, so you can better understand what happened. He said, when they saw him from a distance, and before he come close to them, they plotted against him to put him to death. And they said to one another, here comes the dreamer, here comes this dreamer. Now then, come and let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And we will say, a wild beast devoured him, and then let us see what will come to his dream. Think about that. So understand this. So they saw him coming from a distance, they hid, and they said, we are going to take him, we are going to kill him, and we are going to see if his dreams will come true. Why? Because they hated him, because he had told them about what God had showed him. So one thing I want to share with you, sometimes when God shows you something, you don't have to share it with everybody, because you do not know everybody's heart. You don't have to share it, with your mom. You don't have to stand on the pulpit and tell everybody, this is what God revealed to me. This is what God is about to do for me. Because you do not know everyone's attention. Some of you talk too much. If God planned to do something for you, can you keep a secret? If God has shown you what he's going to do in your life, just keep it for yourself, okay? Just be careful who you share your dreams with, because we have a lot of dream killers in church. So it is very important that when God had shown you something that he's about to do, just pick who you can say it to. So just be careful. Understand is they plotted to kill him is because he had shared his dream. That's why they call him, we are going to take the dreamer and kill him so they can kill his dream. So it is very important that for you to understand when you read the story of Joseph, how he was sold into slavery. And what happened is they took him, okay? They took him, they put him in a pit, and the pit did not have water, okay? And Judah went and picked him up. When you read Genesis chapter 39, and when we read verse 11 and 12, okay, so they took Joseph, okay, they take his clothes off because he has a very special clothing that his father bought for him, and their plot were to kill him and take his clothes and kill one of the animals and take the clothes, the special clothes that his father has made for him, and put the animal's blood on his clothing. So when they went back home, so they told the daddy, by the way, Father, Joseph has died because his animal has killed him. That's exactly what they did. That was their plan. That was their plot. But what they did is they sold Joseph into slavery. Okay? So let's read Genesis chapter 39, verse 11 and 12. Verse 11 and 12 says this. It says this, now it happened one day that he went into the house, verse 39, no, this 37, this is 37, 18 to 21, which one's verse 37, 18 to 21, this is verse 21. But Reuben heard this and rescued him from the hands of, and said, let us not take his life. So understand this, so they took him, okay, they take his clothes off, okay, they take, after they take his clothes off, and they put him in the pit. But one good thing about the pit did not have water. And after that, they took him out of the pit and they sold him into slavery. So the plot was to kill him. They take his clothes off, they kill an animal, and they take his special clothes that his father has made for him, and they take the clothes and put the animal blood on it. So when they went back home, they told Jacob, we cannot find Joseph. Joseph has died. Joseph has passed away. An animal has killed him. But what they have done, they have sold him into slavery. Now, even in slavery, God's favor was on Joseph, even in slavery. So what happened to him? So while Joseph was sold in slavery, and he was working for his master's house and Potiphar's house. So when we read in Genesis chapter 39, verse 11 and 12, but his master's wife fell for Joseph. His master's wife wanted to sleep with him. But Joseph did not want to do it because Joseph was afraid of what will happen. Joseph was afraid that God is watching everything he was doing. So understand this man that God kidnapped, they drop him in a pit, they sold him into slavery. Now he is about to be falsely accused of rape. So when you read Genesis 39 verse 11 and 12, he says, now it happened one day that he went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the household was there inside. She caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and went outside. Understand, is his master's wife fell in love with Joseph, and she tried to sleep with him, and Joseph said, I cannot do that. And he tried to grab him by his garment, but Joseph ran. Because Joseph ran, now all of a sudden she accused him of rape. Think about that. Sold into slavery. Why he was in slavery, he's been accused of rape. Now, because he's been accused of rape, now they took Joseph to prison. But because God has given him a dream, and his dream is the ability for him to interpret dreams. And those dreams, those skills, those talent that God has given Joseph has changed Joseph's life. Because Pharaoh had a dream. And God gave Joseph the ability to interpret the dream. Now, Joseph has rose from slavery to a rapist. Now, Joseph is in the palace. Joseph becomes second in command in Egypt because God's favor was on him. So God will show you favor when you hold your character, because God does not judge you by your emotions, but God judges you by your character. Understand is Joseph had character, and Joseph stayed faithful, and Joseph knows that God will be with him, despite when he was in the pit, despite when he was slaves on slavery, and despite when he was falsely accused of rape, despite when he was in prison. So understand is because God has given Joseph this talent, the talent of deciphering dream, and Joseph explained Pharaoh about a dream that the Pharaoh had, and Pharaoh could not understand the dream. But God has given Joseph the power, the ability to understand, to decipher the dream. And Joseph explained Pharaoh the dream. And now Pharaoh has took Joseph out of the prison, give him new clothes. Okay, not only he give him new clothes, but he put Joseph in charge of starting a government food bank to make sure that the country had food. And now Joseph was in charge of making sure the entire country had food, so when the time of famine come, so they will have enough food not only to eat, but also to sell to the surrounding countries. Why? It's because God's favor was on Joseph's life. Now, during that time, when Joseph rose to power, when Joseph becomes second in command, and the famine in the region was rampant, because the famine was bad. So Joseph's family, his brothers, where they were living, they needed food. And they needed a place for them, they can go buy food so they can eat, so they can survive. And the only place they have food, they can go to buy food, was in Egypt. But understand this, Joseph was 17 years old when they sold him into slavery. He was 17 years old. He was a teenager. Think about that. Think about you as a mom, as a dad, that you lost your 17-year-old son, your 17-year-old daughter, and you can find him or can find her. Understand this teenager has been sold into slavery, and he went through all of these. Now he become this great man, this powerful man in Egypt, in a foreign land. Now understand now Joseph's, intertwined with the culture of Egypt because he grew up there, because Joseph was in control. So when you read Genesis chapter 45, if you swing Genesis chapter 45, turn your page to Genesis chapter 45, and you're going to see what happened. Because of the famine that were in the region, so his father told his brother, by the way, I want you guys to go get food, go buy food, because we need food to eat, so we can have food, for the family. And when you read Genesis chapter 45, verse 1 through 15, then Joseph has done something that was really important, because what he did is, on that chapter, when his brothers went to Egypt to buy food, they could not recognize him, because understand is he was 17 when they sold him into slavery. Now Joseph is an adult. They could not understand this person. They could not recognize who this person was, because God's favor was on Joseph. Now Joseph have give his brothers a speech. Let's read Genesis 45, verse 1 through 15, so you can better understand the story. Let's read verse 4. He said, then Joseph said to his brother, please come closer. And they come closer, and he said to them, I am Joseph, whom you sold into slavery. Think about that. So understand is his brothers came to get food multiple of times. But on this time, Joseph want them to know who he was, because understand this, he was in charge of selling food. Now he said to them, I want to talk to you guys. And when he went and started speaking to them, and he said, I am your brother. He said, I am Joseph. I am Joseph, the one that you want to kill. I am Joseph, the one that you drop in the pit. I am Joseph, the one that you've been sold into slavery. I am Joseph that went to prison because of you guys. I am Joseph, because of you guys, I have been accused of slavery. But Joseph did not remind them about what they have done to him. No, he just said, I am Joseph. And his brothers were shocked. They were surprised. And he said, then Joseph said to his brother, please come closer. And they come closer. And he said to him, I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now, do not be grieved or angry with yourself, because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life. Think about that. He said, for God sent me before you to preserve life. Because if God did not send me here, if God did not send me to Egypt, if God did not allow me to go through the storms, the storm of being sold in slavery, the storm of leaving my parents as a teenager, the storm of being accused of rape, the storm of being spending time in prison, if God did not let me go through the storm, I will not be able to serve life today. Now, let's take a look at our own life sometime. Sometimes, when we are going through things in life, and we go like, but why? Why God? Why it's me? You know why it's you? It's because God knows you are the best person that can go through this and come back better on the other side. Why? Because God knows the reason. Because everything is working for the good of those who are in Christ. So I know that sometimes a lot of us, that people has done things wrong in the past, or why when we were young, there's a reason. Sometimes we went through stuff, we went through hardship. There are reasons, because we might not understand it right now, but later on in the future, so you will understand. God will reveal to you why you went through those hardships in your life. Understand is Joseph in Genesis chapter 45, he revealed himself to his brother, then he stopped giving them a speech. And he said to them, I am Joseph. I am your brother. I am the one that you sold into slavery. Yes, I am the one. And this is what God has done to me. Look at where I am right now. I didn't do it with my with my knowledge, with my education, because I did it because God's favor was on my life. And his brothers was really shocked. But there's something that Joseph has done on their chapter that I want you guys to understand. What he did is, before he spoke with his brother, before he revealed himself who he was, he told all the people that were in charge of giving out the food, all the people that was living, that was there in the palace, he told them, get out. He said, get out. You know why? I tell you what, there are things that need to be discussed. It's supposed to only discuss between families. Strangers not supposed to know what's going on in the family. Same thing in church. There are things that need to be discussed. It's supposed to be only discussed only with the church family. Do not bring anyone on outside, because they will not understand. Because the people in Egypt do not know Joseph's story. They didn't know his background. And he did not really want them to hear this conversation. And he told all his servants, he said, get out, because I'm going to have an intimate conversation an important conversation with my family. I do not want any of you to be part of it. And he starts speaking to his brothers and reveal himself and said, by the way, I am your brother. I am here and I come before you. God has sent me here so I can preserve life, so I can preserve your family's life, so I can preserve the surrounding region, the surrounding country's life, because of what God has given, of the gift of God. And Joseph wished to be alone with his brothers. He said, I don't want anybody else to be here, only me and my brothers. Because Joseph did not want the Egyptians to know he was actually an Hebrew. He didn't want them to know yet. Not yet. It was not the right time. That's why he expelled all the Egyptians out, and he wanted to have this conversation with his brother, with his family. Okay? He did not want any outsiders to be in the conversation, to hear the communication, what he was about to say. So once everybody's out, then he starts speaking to them, and he starts telling them, by the way, I'm here for a reason. So understand is this. Sometimes when things happen, sometimes when things go wrong, or sometimes when we went through difficult time, difficult season, because life have different season. When we have difficult season, and don't blame anyone for it. Don't say it's somebody's fault, okay? There's a reason why. And Joseph's story is a good story for you to decipher on. And Joseph's speech was very important, because it is important sometimes when people put you down when you were younger, or when people put you down because you did not have anything. Now God has blessed you, so when they see you, they should see the blessing, the oil, the benediction of God should be on you. You should shine, because God has lifted you up. God has taken you from the bottom and put you up, because the Bible said, because we are God's children, we should never be last, we should be first. But with God's help, we can be first. Understand is, this young man, this teenager, has been through all this. Now look at his position. Okay? Now, and Joseph has an ability to forgive. Think about that. Joseph has this power of forgiveness. God has given him, not only God has given Joseph a gift to interpret dreams, but also God has given him the power to forgive his brother for all the wrongs they have done. Think about that. If it was you, they sold you into slavery, you've been accused of rape, you've been in prison, you are in a foreign land, you don't even speak their language, pretty much you've been kidnapped. So how would you feel when you saw your brothers? Would you do the same thing he did? Would you speak to them and remind them who you were? But in the story, we also see that how Joseph's ability to forgive, Joseph's ability to let God use him for God to reign in his life. So when Joseph finally saw his brothers again, a lot of things has changed. Life has changed. They didn't know who he was. Understand is, now Joseph was a teenager. Now all of a sudden Joseph has power. Joseph was a prime minister. Joseph was in charge of food. Joseph was in charge of making sure that the food bank stayed full. Joseph was in charge of the finance. Make sure all the monies that they have sold, has been accounted for. So understanding, so when Joseph see his dreams that he saw when he was 17 years old, the dream that he told his father, he told his mother, the dream that he told his brothers, the dream that they hid him for, is going to come to reality. But Joseph didn't even understand that. But a lot of you could say, something? I'm going to revenge against my brothers for what they have done to me. A lot of you will choose revenge, but Joseph didn't do that. He chose the opposite. He chose forgiveness. He said, by the way, I'm here for a reason. God sent me here before you for a reason, so I can save you. He could have said, here's something, I am not selling anything to you guys, because you guys has destroyed my youth. How many of you say that sometimes? You go like, man, I know what this auntie has done to me in the past. I will never forgive her. I know, what this pastor, what this deacon, or what this, Sunday school has said to me. I know what my parents has did to me. I will never forgive them, never. But Joseph didn't do that. He chose to forgive. He chose to rekindle the relationship, and he respect them. He did not bow down, He didn't put them down. He didn't use his position now because God has lifted him up. He did not use his position to tell him, okay, now I'm going to show you guys who I am. I'm not 17 anymore. He didn't do that. So Joseph was a man of God. He did it because God has planted forgiveness in his heart, and even though his brothers has plotted against to kill him. Now, once Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, now, as you read in Genesis 50, now they realize that, oh wow, we remember what we have done to him. They remember. They tried to kill him. They remember. They sold him into slavery, but they remember. But what he did, he chose to forgive them. Understand that not only he chose to forgive them, but also he received the entire family. And he told his brother, by the way, go back. You know what I mean? Get my brother Benjamin. Get my father. Bring everybody to Egypt. The entire family come to Egypt. Why? Because God has planned it that way. God has told Abraham that you will be a great nation and your descendant will spend 400 years in slavery in a country in a foreign land. And that come to pass through Joseph. So it was part of God's plan. It was part of God's plan for them to drop Joseph in the pit. It was part of God's plan for them to sell Joseph to the Egyptians. It was part of God's plan for them for Joseph to be in Potiphar's house. It was part of God's plan for Joseph to be in prison, for Joseph to be accused. It was part of God's plan for Joseph to become prime minister, to become in charge of the food bank and the country in Egypt. It was part of God's plan. And that is very, this is very unimaginable. This was very impactful, because sometimes when God is working his way, you cannot understand it. You got to ask God to reveal it to you. You got to ask God to open your eyes, to expand your spiritual eyes so you can see what he's trying to do. And Joseph had an ability. Joseph has forgiven his brothers. He did. And because of Joseph's life, and Joseph has the likeness of Christ. Joseph have likeness of Christ. Joseph is a type of Christ. So let's look at some similarities between Joseph and Christ. So Joseph sold by his brothers. Jesus was sold by his disciple Judas. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. They hated him. They were jealous of him. Jesus was betrayed by his disciples, because as soon as he got arrested, they couldn't find any other of his disciples. Peter said, I do not know this man. So he was betrayed. And Joseph was betrayed by his brothers. Joseph's father loved him. God loved his only son, and he gave him to the world to die for our sin. Joseph became the prime minister in Egypt. Because of that, he saved his family. But Jesus is sitting on the right hand of God, and he's pleading our cases for us. And he will be crowned the King of Kings. And Joseph was the second in command. And also, Joseph forgave his brothers and restored the relationship he had with them. Jesus forgave his disciples after they betrayed him. And he said, may peace be with you. So those are a few similarities that I just want to share with you between Jesus and Joseph. Now, understand is the story of Joseph spanned from Genesis chapter 37 all the way up to Genesis chapter 50. But one thing that we can conclude in the story of Joseph, his life, what he has been through, is the power to forgive, the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness is difficult, especially what he has been through, especially what they have done to him. But God has granted him the ability to forgive his brother. He did not take revenge. This is what we read in Genesis chapter 50, when he said to them, verse 19, Genesis chapter 50, verse 19, Joseph said to them, do not be afraid. Am I in God's place? For as for you, you mean evil against me. But God meant it for good in order to bring about this present life. So he told them, you guys has plotted against me when I was 17. You guys were trying to kill me. You guys betrayed me. You guys hated me. But God has planned it for the good. So forgiveness is difficult, especially when you have been hurt, especially when you have wounded, especially when you carry the mark, especially when you remember what happened. But let's be like Joseph. But Joseph loved his family, even though they were so jealous of him, but he loved them. Even though they hated him, but he loved them. Even though his brothers plot to kill him, even though they put him in the pit, their brother, think about it, their brothers, the little brother, they put him in the pit. But he still loved them, and he still found a way to forgive them. And he still have this family reunion. Think about it. Think about the family reunion between Joseph and his family now. Joseph is grown. And when all his brothers, family, and wives, they all come to Egypt. Think about it. Just imagine this family reunion. Imagine the story. Imagine all the things that they have lost. Imagine all the different, things that they will share, what happened to Joseph. And the Bible did not say that, but I'm pretty sure that, during this family reunion Joseph might have, Joseph will tell him about his life, about things that he'd been through, about all the ups and downs, Joseph will tell him about that. So forgiveness is difficult, but it's a must. Forgiveness is hard, but God requires it. Just like when we read in Matthew chapter 6, if we do not forgive those who has done things wrong to us, God will not forgive us also. So if you need to be forgiven, you got to start today. And Joseph has done it. Even through all he went through, even all of this hardship he went through, and he still forgave his brothers. Sometimes we all struggle to forgive. Sometimes it's hard to forgive. Sometimes it's difficult to forgive. But at some point, we got to let it go. At some point, we need to let this anger go. At some point, we need to empty your heart with all these people that you've been holding hostage, with all these people that you've been holding in prison for a long time, at some point, anger and resentment and thoughts of revenge, all they bring you is suffering and unhappiness. All these people that you've been holding in your heart for the past 3 months, all the people that you've been have issue with before we went into quarantine since February, I mean, this resentment, there's a time for it to cease. There's a time for it to end. Because all it's bringing you is suffering. What it does is when you hold people in your heart, you're not happy. You know, you're not joyful. And Joseph did not want what they have done to him to take over of his happiness. And Joseph did not play a victim. Joseph did not tell his brothers that he was a victim. No, Joseph was a victorious man. He was a powerful man. So sometimes we play the victim all the time. We have this victim mentality. No, with God we are victorious. We're not a victim. Even though people has done things wrong to you in the past, but God can change all that. God can change you. God can change your life. The same way he did with Joseph, God can change every single one of you if you open your heart for him to reign. If you want God to be the king of your life. So resentment and anger, all of those will keep you from having a relationship, not only with your brothers and sisters, but also with God. So when we forgive, when we do this, when we forgive others, even though it's difficult, even though it's hard, guess what happened? We are releasing all the prison, because all the prison that we have in your heart, all the prisoners are free. Now we have the ability to go before God and pray and ask for forgiveness, and God can come to our life. But the truth about forgiveness is about growth. It's about my growth. It's about your growth, spiritual growth. Because when we empty the prison, when we empty our heart, they have all these prisoners that's been there for a long time. When we empty our hearts, now we can grow spiritually. Now we can communicate. Now we can have a relationship. Now we can serve God faithfully. Now we can be happy again. So forgiveness helps us to remove the pain from our hearts. So exercise the power of forgiveness. So the same way that Joseph found into himself, even though his brother had sold him into slavery, even though he went through all this hardship, but God has used the evil that they had plotted against him for the good. And Joseph has forgiven his brothers. I want you to do the same. I want every single one of you who are watching and who will be watching later on, I want every single one of you to practice forgiveness. It's a requirement. It is hard, but it's a requirement. So the same way that Joseph has used God's gift, the gift that God has given him. I know God has given you a gift. And if you do not know the gift that God has given you, ask him. And also, when you pray, ask God to give you the ability and the power to forgive those who have hurt you, those who have done things wrong to you, and ask God to release all the resentment, to release all the anger that are being stored in your heart, and you want Jesus to come and reign in your life, just like Joseph did. God bless, and I'll see you next week.
you.